Good Saturday morning, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Booth Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's wake up the football gods here on this Saturday morning. I'm glad you guys are joining us here where we talk about the Dallas Cowboys that are always in the news for the wrong reasons. But I'm going to actually give you guys some hope. But before we get into the Dallas Cowboys and everything else, I hope you tune into this evening. Tonight at 7:30 p.m., we are going to have the very first USFL game since back in the 80s. Tonight we have the New Jersey Generals versus the Birmingham Stallions at 7:30. We're going to live stream because, well, you know, we were there for the, what was the other league called? XFL. The XFL. We were actually in person just before the pandemic started for the XFL's inaugural game. So we're definitely going to watch the USFL's very, very first one and see what they've got. I hear there's a 3-point play or something or other in there. The rules are going to be a little bit different, so they're going to be doing some experimenting out there. Maybe we'll see some future things that we'll see in the NFL. So, you know, hey, listen, there's a football. There's people on the field. They'll be throwing it, handing it off, and tackling people. Don't tell me you got something better to do. I know it's not the NFL. I know it's not our favorite players. But, guys, the balls will be flying. So we will be there definitely tonight. Now, as for the Dallas Cowboys, do you miss football? I miss actually, and I bet you the players on the field wish that they were on the field. This week coming up on the 18th, the Cowboys start OTAs. They'll be actually able to focus in on practice and being in the team with what they have as a team at this moment. Unfortunately, we go through, oh my God, this may be the worst offseason that I can remember. You know, I mean, it may not end up being the worst team coming out of an offseason, but as far as the headlines and everything else, it's hard just to keep up. It was less than 2 weeks ago we were talking about the paternity suit. In that case with Jerry Jones, it was just, you know, a few days ago we were talking about the Cowboys printing their own money where Jerry Jones is on top talking about my loyal subjects and getting in bed with cryptocurrency. And then we've had the whole world turned upside down. The whole world turned upside down with Boss Man Fat, Calvin Joseph, and that situation, and now the uncertainty on his future. We just kind of we go through so much stuff. It seems like Amari Cooper, was that this year? Was that this year? Bobby Wagner? Oh, Randy Gregory? It's just like hit after hit after hit after hit. And if you're a Cowboy fan, your expectations should be low. There's no way, no how, the way we've been hit left, right, center, back, stomped on, run over, back the truck up, hit us again, that you should feel like this is a Super Bowl team. I don't know how you do. When the Cowboys have done nothing in free agency, they've lost some good players, they've looked completely inept, there's no way, no how that anybody should look at this team, and we know it's going to happen in a couple months. Cowboys got Super Bowl talent. Cowboys got Super Bowl talent. And it's funny because here's where either I'm blind or some other people are. Because I always hear about the Cowboys have enough talent to go to the Super Bowl. The Dak Prescott got more talent than anybody else. And I'm just sitting here looking at the players like Tyreek Hill and, Kelsick and things like that, and the offensive genius of Andy Reid and saying, Dak has that? I'm sitting here looking at Sean McVay and his offensive prowess and design versus Kellen Moore. I look at Cooper Kupp and Jefferson and, of course, them having Aaron Donald on that team, having and then getting an Odell Beckham and stuff and saying, we've got that same talent that they did. Did we? Von Miller? I'm just kind of pointing it out. But expectations for us are always through the roof, whether they're warranted or not. But when you look at this whole situation where the Cowboys have chances to take some risk to try and get, outstanding players, game changers in free agency, we don't do that. We usually do pretty good in the draft, although the second round seems to be our bugaboo where we try to find value, Stephen Jones, by getting guys that are damaged goods and thinking that they're not going to be damaged anymore. And typically, every one of the guys that the Cowboys have gotten that have been damaged second-round picks, they've played like damaged second-round picks. From Randy Gregory to Kellen Joseph, Jalen Smith. You can go down the line of guys that they fell in the draft from being a first-round guy, and the Cowboys still believe that they're a first-round guy. Tristan Hill. And that's where we can't make that mistake this year. But I'm going to give you some hope today. Today's going to be, I hope, a slow Dallas Cowboys news day. I hope that the Cowboys are now bunkered in and focusing in and realizing, hey, listen, we've made some mistakes in the past in trying to get better value in the second round. Let's just go out and get a player that doesn't have any injury history. Let's just go out and get a guy that doesn't have any problems on getting along in the locker room or with the coaching staff. How about we do that? How about we get a guy who fits the needs of what we have? How about let's doing that with that second-round pick? And let's find ourselves another Diggs or another D-Law as opposed to a Tristan Hill or a Kellen Joseph. We do that, we'll be okay. But for everybody that's doom and gloom, the funny thing about football is this time last year, how many people thought that the Cincinnati Bengals would end up in the Super Bowl? In a loaded AFC. Who thought that? Who thought that the Bengals could get past Cincinnati or Buffalo? Who thought they had the talent? Who thought that they did enough to make it there? Because here's the crazy thing about football. You don't know what you don't know. You can make an educated guess. You can look at the numbers. You can look at the trends. But the reality is sometimes it just don't work out that way. And I'm going to end this morning with this. Because this is funny because you could change the date on this and it would fit today perfectly. Let's listen.
Well, not counting Dak, I give him an F, Skip. I mean, Keanu O'Neal does not move the needle for me. He's a safety that can't cover, so that's why they got rid of him in Atlanta. And he's coming off major injury, ACL, Achilles injury. They brought him in to be Cam Chancellor, but he doesn't have Cam Chancellor's instincts. So that makes him useless. I think they're going to that rendered him playing in the secondary very, very hard. I think they're going to probably try to move him to weak side linebacker, Skip, because he is physical, but he's a little undersized. And so it's going to be a lot different, Skip. It's shedding a tight end, shedding a wide receiver is one thing. Trying to shed a guard, a 310-pound guard, a 320-pound tackle, that's something entirely different. So we're going to see how well he played in a confined area. We know he likes to play in the box, but normally you're weeding your way through wide receivers. You're pressing wide receivers, getting to the football. Try pressing out a 300-pound offensive lineman and see how you like that. They re-signed Jordan Lewis, but Skip, they lost Awuzie, they lost Dalton. They haven't re-signed Alden Smith. So I'm looking at this, Skip. This doesn't move the needle for me. Obviously, Dak was a big plus, but I excluded Dak in this. So when I look at this, I gave him an F.
Give him an F.
Okay. I almost went F. I'm going to go D, and glass half full, I'm going to call it disappointing, but glass half empty, I'm going to call it disastrous. Because
Did you include Dak or you?
yeah, no, this is post-Dak.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, because I hark back to Jerry Jones sitting next to Dak Prescott as they had their kiss and make up press conference announcing his signing. And Jerry kept saying, we got a big piece of pie left, meaning salary cap pie. Big piece of pie.
Well, he might have ate it before the next
He might
morning.
have eaten it all. Dak Prescott counts only $22.2 million against next year's cap, and I still can't figure it out because he's going to make $75 million. But I love 22.2 because it should give you just a little bit of breathing room, enough that you could go get two, what I would call significant free agent pieces on
Won't
defense. And Keanu Neal does not rank as significant to me.
No.
So,
quiz asshole.
first of all,
You have
as
a
you
hair
just
trigger
point
aimed
out,
at your head. What do
he
you
had
do?
missed most of 2 seasons with an ACL, and then he tore his Achilles. And you know what happens when you tear your Achilles? It's just hard to ever quite be right.
Yes.
And now they are reportedly bringing in a safety that I loved coming out in the draft out of The Ohio State University, Malik Hooker. He was the 15th overall pick. And by the way, Keanu Neal was the 17th overall pick in 2017,
Right.
but Malik in 2017, 15th overall. He's also coming off an Achilles tear. Ugh. They're also bringing in that DeMonte Kazee, also from Atlanta,
Bless you.
coached by Dan Quinn.
Right.
And he is also coming off an Achilles tear. Both of those Malik and Kazee tore their Achilles early last season.
Correct.
So what am I supposed to make of this? I got 3 Achilles tear victims,
I guess
right?
they're going to rehab together.
They're going to rehab together. What are we doing?
That'll have a great
We're gonna be
rehabilitation
the
center.
Achilles squad, right? What are we doing? And then I tried to get excited about Keanu Neal, in part because you mistakenly called him Keanu. Yeah, you went John Wick, right?
Yeah.
Okay, if he were John Wick, I would be jumping through hoops for this because he'd be indestructible.
Right.
Because Keanu, John Wick,
Right.
never tore his Achilles tendon
Right.
because he's impervious to bullets. He's never even been really.
Here we
He
go.
never even gets shot.
Or when he was in the Matrix, they couldn't even hit it with bullets.
That's a good one. That's true. Okay, then it dawned on me late last night as I looked at this. Wait a second. The Atlanta Falcons last year allowed the most passing yards in all of pro football. Then
You follow me?
I start trying to convince myself, well, what if they signed Malik Hooker and Keanu? Maybe that would make it better. And then I'm thinking, yeah, Achilles. I don't know. And then I look back at the other signees so far. We talked about Ty Nsekhe. He's a backup offensive lineman. He was undrafted out of Texas State. I'd never heard of him before. He was on the Buffalo squad last year. He has 17
And Washington
starts
before that.
for 6 different NFL teams, but he spent 4 years in the Arena League, starting with the Corpus Christi Sharks and going to the Dallas Vigilantes and then to the CFL. And I'm supposed to get excited about Ty Nsekhe and then Carlos Watkins,
He didn't do
defensive
much.
end that they signed. Okay, once upon a time, he was 4th-round pick out of Clemson. He finally started last year in his 4th year for the Houston Texans. He started 11 of 16 games for the Texans. The worst run defense in all of pro football last year belonged to that defense that he started for. And I'm supposed to get excited about that, Jerry? That's a big piece of pie.
But I thought, Skip, you've been telling me you wrote books that Jerry loves box office, and he signed the most unknown guys in free agents.
Okay, then he signed Terrell Basham. And I read things, I don't know Terrell Basham, but I read that he had his moments for the Jets last year. The Jets?
Just they have no moments.
Huh? For the Jets? They were ranked 26th in points allowed last year. Really? He ranked.
Okay, so enough of them. You get the picture here. So last year, where we had one of the worst defenses in the Dallas Cowboys history, in fact, gave up more points than any other team in the history of the Dallas Cowboys, getting players with ruptured Achilles tendons and ACLs and guys that were no names from the Jets and the Falcons and so on, where we all figured, if the defense could just do a little bit, The amazing thing was they got a guy named Micah Parsons who came in, who became the face of the team on that defense. They got a coach who understands putting together people in a system, and they surprised the hell out of everybody. Nobody, and I mean nobody out there at this time last year thought that the Dallas Cowboys, with what they did in free agency, and I dare say the Cowboys may have had a better success rate with their free agents that they signed than maybe some of the other teams that signed a lot more. I'm going to talk to my buddy Dave and see if he can figure that one out. In retrospect, when we went for bigger name players the year before, we know the big name players that we had the year before, none of them stuck. But yet, this time, quite a lot of the players that we got stuck with the Cowboys. And that says they are actually playing well enough to stay there. Some of the big names we signed the year before didn't make it to the season or through the season. So maybe, just maybe, we're not in as bad a shape as we like to say. Don't know that we have talent at this moment to make it to the Super Bowl, but the cake is not finished baking yet. So let's wait and see if it rises before we go too much further. And with that being said, it's Saturday. I'm back home. I've got to do some work on the studio here as we get ready for the draft. I've got work to do in the workshop there that I've got to get for projects out for you great fans. And always keeping up with the Dallas Cowboys. And as always, I appreciate you.
Our Coach here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the show for the sports report.
This is one hell of a job, and the only thing else I got to say is